Hey, this is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com. It's Thursday. This is September the 20th. This will be our chart lesson today. And really the prices trended up for most of the day. We had a little lull here from about 10 o'clock to about noon time, so about a 2-hour lull. Really it was just kind of a 2-hour correction in there. And then we started trending higher again. But if you look at here's the highs and lows from the overnight. Your high is up here at 54 and your low is down here about 45. So you got about a 10-point range there, and we couldn't close outside of that range. We got a couple little tiny closes up here, but then we traded back into the range, and before the market closed you could see we couldn't close outside that range or outside that level right there, and that was the highs from the overnight. So I would still call this, in the big picture, a trading range day, although the trend was up for most of the day. And the only time we really got below the EMA a little in here and a little here. And actually I should have had a line right across here on this one, like so, because this actually became this was actually the highs from over here that became the lows on this side. And so really you got two ranges. We spent the early part of the morning in this range and the latter part of the day in this higher range. And if you measure those, they're probably fairly close to, if you went all the way down to here, these are probably close to being measured ranges. Let's just see how close they are. There's the first range, and there's the second one. But you can see we spent most of the time in this one. We only broke out of there just a little bit, so it's pretty close. That's what you would expect. So let's talk about the trades. We had a trend line. We actually had a trend line coming down to start the day, and we broke it right at the open. The open market opened right in here in this area. And we did have a trend line working down from the overnight. We broke it. We tried to go higher. We had a little trap here. You actually could have gone short right here, but it was still a little risky because we had all these overlapping bars here. And you got to get in real close to the low, and you see what happened. It broke lower and failed and then went back into the range. But then it immediately sold off and closed on its low. So when we broke higher first and then turned down, you could have had a stop right below this little double 2-bar matching low here. And if you missed that, you still could have gone short here. There wasn't a lot of room down to here, but you got to be thinking we're coming to test this low, and there's plenty of room for either one. And you just have to be ready. You just have to be cognizant, I should say. In case you bounce here, you got to exit this thing real quick. You get out with a tick or two or whatever you can get on it. But it never hesitated. It went straight on down and went straight on. It didn't even hesitate here. It went straight on through. And I was really tempted to buy this thing blindly here, and I'm glad I didn't. It would have worked out. I may have gotten stopped out, I don't know, but I talked myself out of it, and I'm glad I did, because we had this big leg down. And you had to be thinking, are we going to get another leg down like that? So we did have the break of the trend line to move down, but you definitely got to be thinking after that big move down. And notice how the bars start to overlap. We had a little doji here, and then we had a couple of overlaps. When you got those matching lows, that was the place to drop your buy limit order. And you see what happened. Prices ticked one tick in reverse. And if you didn't catch that, when you made this little bitty inside bar, which made a little bit higher low, that's a second entry long right there. And so that was a nice entry. Either way, the smart entry was when you see this overlap that far away from the EMA. And let me show you what this looked like. That's what it looked like. And you see that overlap on a break below, and you got to be thinking, hey, I got to drop an order right here. And look what happened. You drop your order right there. It ticks one tick lower, and then suddenly it bounces and then reverses and goes right back to the EMA. And that's a quick, easy move to scalp out. And if you get lucky, you're sneaking in. So if you get lucky, it doesn't come back and get your break even stop either. And you see it didn't. So that trade right there got me long at the very low of the day. And you see it, prices never really looked like they were going to reverse. They kind of got choppy right here. And this was a little bit scary, but you know, you've already scalped out by that time, so your runners are easily safe. And so by placing that order there, I was able to get long at the very low of the day today. And that just depends on how long you ride your runners after that. Because you can see we closed almost on the high of the day. So you could have held this right to the close. But really when it started bouncing around in here, this is when I exited. When we made this failed break higher here after this trend line break, that's where I exited. And but then you could re-enter again down here. So, but anyway, that was a great setup. Then you had a little pullback to the EMA here. And if you drew your trend line off those first two bars right there, this set up perfect, and you got a nice reversal bar that broke one tick below, and it's really just a pullback, test this little breakout area right here, and then it was off, and it took a little while. And you notice every time today it was like that. There weren't a lot of big fast moves. There was one right here, and really there was a trap right here, but this was really suspect here because you didn't know if we weren't going to make another leg down. And it's so close to the highs, although the next high is way up here. So if you took that trade, it met our criteria. It just was not a great setup, but it turned out to be one of the best moves of the day, really, besides this move right here. So you got to be aware and watch for these traps. When this turned down, and right at the close it turned up, and just before it closed on its high, and that's a bullish sign. Although I didn't take that trade because that was a first entry short, and I was afraid we were going to tick up and turn back down, but it didn't happen. We didn't pull back down until we tested these highs over here. And then you got to pull back to the EMA. Notice we're way away from the EMA again and got overlapping bars. So that's an opportunity to even scalp coming back. But it was not as far away as I like it to be. So I didn't mark that. I didn't take that one. I didn't mark it. I was still long at this point. So you got a chance to add on right here or take a new trade right here, depending on where you were at this point. And this was a nice move up, pretty strong move up. And then you got a two-legged pullback. And this is really just like a two-legged pullback to the EMA. There's two legs in the first leg, then a move up, and then another leg down, and then we reverse. So it's still, if you went to a smaller chart, you would see that. So it's still a two-legged pullback type. It's a very similar pattern to a two-legged pullback. Well, again, it is a two-legged pullback because you got one leg, pullback, second leg, and then you got a correction, and then you got another leg down. So it's two legs in the first leg and then one leg, just like you'll see on a bigger picture sometimes. And that's not an uncommon pattern to see one leg down and then another leg down and two legs in that leg. So you got to be aware of that. Excuse me, because you will see that sometimes, and you'll get. The main thing, and sometimes it's harder to spot like this one. If you went to a smaller chart, that'd be real clear right there. But on this bigger chart, it's kind of hard to see. And but the main thing is it's a pullback to the EMA and the trend line, which the trend line's coming off these first two bars here, and you got a nice touch and a perfect reversal right there. And then now you got to be thinking this is one leg here, so let's see if we get another leg. You see there's leg one, and then there's leg two, and it might have went a tick or two higher, but you notice how nothing closed up there. So then you got your two-legged move up, and that's when you got your break of the trend line, a move to a new high, a couple of legs, and then you spent a little while correcting. And really, this is just a trading range, and this is where a lot of people get confused on the break of the trend line. Generally, a break of the trend line and a new high, it doesn't always mean a trend reversal. It just means you're going to have a nice correction. And you see that's the biggest correction of the day, and it lasted from about a little before 11 to just after noon, and that kind of meets the criteria. The corrections, you're going to get at least a minimum of an hour correction, and that's what we got. And then prices started trending again. And when you did that, then you should have been getting you a new trend line over here. Just like, and it's almost like the other one. You come off those first two bars right there. I don't have that quite right. And look how it meets those other, just like we did down here. And it's a similar type pattern. And if you copy that line and drag it up to the upper side, you can see that you got a nice channel going up there again. So anyway, this was a failed break lower, and once again, you could have had when you made this big bearish bar, that's the trap that people are looking for, and you could have dropped a limit order in there and done the same thing. Although this wasn't as good a setup as this, it still would have worked. I don't like that one. Your better bet was to wait till you got these two matching double bottoms and then put one here, but it never triggered. But you got an inside bar. Notice right there, you got this little inside bar with in the last two closes. You notice how this closes below that line and this closes above it. So that's generally what you see. You know, prices, it's holding below and then it holds above, and then you reverse. So that's a nice second entry long there, very similar to the one we got here with a little inside bar. And look, prices took off again. So that was another great long. And then you got a two-legged pullback to the trend line, to the EMA, and a second entry long. Now this one's getting more risky because we're very close to these highs where prices have turned several times. However, you got to be thinking this is what we're shooting for right here, and just be on your toes. If you have to exit and get out of there. And this one pulled back a couple of times. I can't remember. I actually took this trade, but I can't remember. I think I entered at 52, and it did pull back. Yep, it did pull back right there. But your stop, even if you entered at 52, your stop would have, you still had room for a 2-point stop down here. And that's a pretty safe stop on a day that's been trending up. We're all above the EMA again. And so this was not like I said, this wasn't a beautiful, it was not the kind of setup I like to see. But you can't ignore a two-legged pullback to the EMA and the trend line in a market that's been trending up pretty much all day. You just can't ignore that. And you got another one right here, and again, you see it would have worked. But by this time, it's getting really late. I wasn't trading. I didn't take that one, but I probably would have taken that one if I was trading, because you still got room to scalp out before you get to these highs. And you see that's exactly where it went to and turned down. And then it gave one more push, and then it sold off. You know, they trapped everybody up there, and then it sold off. And they came back, and it's still acting as resistance right there. It never really acted as support. You got a couple of bars that closed up here with some green, but most of them were negative. And you know, once it broke below that, it sold off pretty good. Broke this trend line. Now we almost made two equal legs up, and we may sell off from there. We'll just have to see. But that was, you know, there were quite a few entries today. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 entries today. And so it was a pretty good day, and you had to be thinking up most of the day. I was starting to wonder here if we were not going to make it, but when we broke below that low and went into this overlap, that was a pretty good sign we were at least going to make another shot at it. And once we got going up again, and we continued to go up until we finally tested that new high just above it. So it all worked out great. Pretty good trading day. Hopefully you made some money today. This was the one that was really, really iffy right here. I actually went long again here, and I let them shake me out of all of it right here. So I let them shake me out, and then I regretted it, but I was able to get a short up here and get some, make it all back on the way down. And then you just had to start over, and if you were still trading. So And again, the only reason I like this high was because this is a trading range day. And notice this, except for this setup, well, even this setup here works as long as you keep your stop above the signal bar. But you always hear me say on trading range day, you got to fade every new high and every new low. And look what happened. We made a new high and we had a correction. We made a new high and we had a big correction. We made a new high, we had a big correction. We made a new high, we had a two-legged correction. Made a new high, we had a big correction. So you got to watch those because that's what happens. You generally, you're better off to wait on a setup and make sure that, it meets all our other criteria, because here we made a new high and we sold off. But if you waited to go short below that green bar, which you probably shouldn't, you didn't get a good setup, and not like you would have on some of these others. So, but anyway, just remember that generally on trading range days, every time you make a new high or new low after the 8:30 open, you generally get a good setup. So that was pretty much it for the trades. Again, there were quite a few setups today, and most of them were two-legged corrections. And you see, this is a two-legged correction, 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 this is a two-legged correction. So most all those trades are two-legged corrections. And back to the EMA, back to the trend line, back to a strong support or whatever. So you got to pay attention to those things there. I just can't tell you how much money we make off those every single day, day after day after day. And it's very rarely, if they're with the trend, that they fail. Once you start to get up in here to the previous resistance, you gotta continue to watch how prices react off the EMA. Don't start, once you get up in here, it's not wise to be buying these blindly. You're better off to unless of course you see something like a double bottom. That's another thing here. This is not only a two-legged correction, it's a double, triple type bottom across there. And it's two tests of that breakout area, which you know what that means. That's a solid test of that breakout area that held twice. So now we're probably going higher. But one other thing I'm going to talk about today, I got overwhelmed. I didn't even notice it was on my chart, but there was some volume, or there was a volume indicator on my chart the last couple of days. And I don't know why. It must be some way I have the settings set up. I need to look into it. But whenever I open a new chart, we just changed over to the December chart a few days back. And whenever I open a new chart, for some reason, it always puts the volume on there. And that'll just show you how little, that's how focused I am on the bars and the price action. I didn't even realize that volume was on there until I started getting emails. And I bet I got a dozen emails from different people asking me about volume and, asking me how I was using it and was I, to explain it. And just to make a long story short, I don't use volume. I didn't even realize it was down there. Did not notice it until somebody pointed it out to me. So that shows you how focused that I really am on the bars and the price action, because that's obviously been on there most of the week and I didn't even realize it was there. So if you want to use volume, if it helps you, by all means use it, but you really can see the volume and know it by the bars, by how quick the bars form. So even in the price action, you can still get a feel for volume without having these volume bars down here. And I just do not use volume. Never could find anything, there's a few things that are interesting about volume, but I never found anything that was concrete that I was willing to, that made it worth me taking my eyes off the chart or off the price action to try to follow the volume. So again, if it helps you, use it, but I can't find any value in it personally, and it just distracts me from what I do need to be looking at. So I don't recommend using volume, and I don't use volume. So if you notice it on my charts, ignore it. And if you see it again, just ignore it, because I'm not using volume. So I did remove it once I realized it was there. But no, I don't use the volume in my trading. And so there's nothing I can share with you about volume that I think would be beneficial to you, because I don't think there is anything really beneficial. And maybe there is, and I'm just not aware of it. But I've never found it to help me with my trading. I'm better off to to watch the price action and use the setups as I'm teaching them, and nothing works better than that. So, and I can tell you the problem is, we're into 20 minutes here, but let me add this. This is what makes trading so hard. When prices are running down here like this, it takes nerve to buy these lows down here, but that's what you got to be able to do. And again, you got prices. This is almost a complete repeat pattern right here. You got prices rushing down here to make a new low, and they break lower, and everybody, you know, I guarantee you there's some of y'all watching this video, you sold down here, and all you did was allow somebody, the smart traders, volume. You're providing their volume down here and right here. If you're getting short, I guarantee there were people that went short below that little double bottom, and it ticked one tick, and that was the low of the day. And I guarantee there were people that sold the low of the day and probably didn't exit until it broke up here, or when they finally gave up somewhere at the highest point. One of these highs is when they gave up, and it's probably one of these two, because then you know, they could have got a lot of it back. But I know what happens. It used to happen to me, so I know, and I know that's what happens to traders. So what makes trading so hard is having the nerve to buy here and here, and sell here and here when prices are making new highs, and here and here, and places like up here. Of course, up here, by this time we've really got a nice uptrend going. And are we about to sell off? I don't know, but notice we had the break of that trend line, then two legs up, and it's trying to sell off. Now you got to be aware of the fact that you got this first leg up. So will we make another leg similar to that one? If so, we got to go a little bit higher. We just have to see what happens tomorrow, or if our prices are going to be back down here by tomorrow. That's a strong possibility. But that's what makes trading so hard, is that you got to be able to learn to buy down here. And the thing is that people don't understand is that you can buy down here. If you put a limit order and bought there, you could have had a 2-tick stop, and it never even got close to being tested. And you know, that's the thing. You can, and if you buy on these pullbacks here, you can have such a tight stop. If you bought on this break lower right in here somewhere, if you bought that tick lower, or if you bought anywhere right in here, you could have had a stop of 2 or 3 ticks a point, and so you get in with tiny stops. Same thing up here. Anytime you get a doji at a strong support or resistance, it's almost always a good trade, and that's a strong signal that we're going to pull back right there. Are we going to pull back all the way down to here? You don't know, but you know you got enough room to scalp out before you get back down to the lows, and that's what you can almost count on. And so you got to learn to buy the lows and sell the highs, and you know, tomorrow we'll be on a strong trend and going lower, and everybody will be buying the lows all day. And I'm not talking about when prices are trending. When prices are trending up, you're trying to buy the lows. And when prices are trending down, you're trying to sell the highs. And when prices are in a range, you're buying the lows and selling the highs. So just keep that in mind, and don't be doing a lot of counter trend trading. Stay with the trend and look to buy. You know, when the prices are trending up, we're looking to buy double bottoms, two-legged pullbacks to the EMA and trend line, and failed breaks slower. And you see that if you did that all day, you could have made a mint. It's pretty simple. It doesn't look like it when prices are trading, but you just got to trust it and go with it. And if you're wrong, you're wrong. And what you'll find is that 8 times out of 10, you'll probably be right. And a couple times you're wrong, you get a real small stop and you don't get hurt. So keep that in mind. This thing's going on 24 minutes. I apologize for the length, but I thought that was worth talking about today, and I definitely wanted to bring up the volume. So I'm going to wrap it up. This is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next time.